Okay, guess we're doing Superman next. Superman Returns is not a good movie. It's slow, it's boring, and it doesn't do anything interesting with the characters. Or period, really. I know people have been trying to will into existence a cosmic retcon that the movie was fine because Brandon Routh was brilliant reprising Superman in Crisis on Infinite Earths, but much like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies, great actor plus shit material and a studio with its head up its ass is not a train that should have been allowed to keep going on the off chance it eventually righted itself. So what do you get when you adapt a movie where nothing happens into a video game? I have multiple sources that Superman Man of Steel is a pile of crap, so this is our last hope for a Superman game that doesn't blow ass. Will it rise to the challenge? Will they get Superman to control properly? And will it have a better final boss than Superman vs. a rock? Only one way to find out. The game begins with a tutorial explaining all of Superman's powers as you're tasked with shooting meteors out of the sky. Several of which hit Metropolis because Superman was too busy being reminded that he can fly. Pressing Y will have Superman lift off and start flying, and holding Y will catapult Superman a few miles into the sky in a maneuver that will never come in handy the entire friggin' game. You use the control pad to switch between heat vision, freeze breath, and super breath, those last two being two different things for reasons I cannot fathom. All the powers have a huge range and plenty of energy, and the lock-on button makes them super easy to use, and the flight controls pretty well, mainly because there is nary a ring in sight. You also have access to super speed, both in the air and on the ground, and it lets you friggin' zoom across the city with ease, and thankfully doesn't run on a meter. Between simple flight controls and the immense speed at your disposal, it's really fun and really simple to navigate Metropolis with this setup. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the turning controls with using super speed are a little sensitive. An innocent bystander may assume Superman is plowed as you crash into everything nearby. But in my experience, even if you zoom way past your target on accident, it's really easy to get back to a destination that you've overshot. But yeah, I'm starting to understand why nobody's made a dedicated game about the Flash. Hey, that building cut me off! Get off the road, you jackass! Ow, my face! Send that bill to Bruce Wayne. He knows what he did. How is anyone expected to run straight when the whole world's a spinning? I'm not drunk, you're drunk! Superman's speed run is not animated very convincingly either, is it? Alright, much like in the movie, astronomers discover the remnants of Krypton and Superman leaves Earth for 5 years to investigate.
Mankind has learned how to survive without him, and perhaps we no longer even need Superman.
Yeah, screw you, Superman! We can handle meteor storms and fire-breathing dragons and rampaging Transformers all on our own! I'm sure Batman will help us. We have dozens of citizens named Martha. But in the game, on Superman's return to Earth, he gets abducted by Mongol, a big space alien gladiator dude, and we get a combat tutorial. The combat eats! You have one combo of X and Y that you can mash for a chain of punches, and no matter how many combos or upgrades you ostensibly get over the rest of the game, the starting combo is the only one that I ever got to work. You mash X, 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 Y, X, Y over and over again as Superman slowly churns out blows, and that's it. You can uppercut people or grab them and slam them into the floor. Neither is any more effective than the one functioning combo. Also, because the Y button is simultaneously used for some fighting combos and also to take off flying, Superman will randomly just launch himself about 3 miles away from the guy I'm fighting, completely unprompted. And using Y in combat will periodically have Superman lift off the ground, which makes all of his attacks either suck or stop working altogether. Can someone remind me why in the hell the flight button is also a punch button? Also, what is up with these stupid-ass gladiators that Mongol hired? This dude looks like Killer Moth and puts up about as good of a fight. And then you have a boss battle with Mongol where nothing works except blocking and dodging behind him about 50 times. And given that he has a health bar and you don't, more on that later, I'm curious how you actually lose this fight. Alright, tutorials are over, Superman is back on Earth, we have our free reign of a completely open world metropolis. Let the real game begin! The first villain who wants a piece of Superman is Metallo, who has apparently gained the power of the friggin' Allspark from Transformers and can make robot minions out of nearby technology. Despite Metallo's entire power set being that he has a kryptonite heart that hits Superman for massive damage, he isn't actually able to injure you. Again, we'll get to this in a minute. You fight Metallo by punching him in the head until he runs away, and then you are introduced to the utterly pointless, soul-crushing grind that is 95% of the gameplay in Superman Returns. After Metallo gets away, you wander the city with basically jack squat to do until a new objective marker pops up. That marker will have you fight a small group of basic cannon fodder enemies that aren't even remotely a threat to you. Once you take down this group, you are left to wander the city again until another marker spawns that will more than likely have you fight that exact same group of enemies again. You're sent to wander aimlessly fighting groups of basic goons for a full fucking hour before Metallo finally shows his face again so that you can defeat him. I am not joking. The game just stops dead for an hour of dead air filler before you get another crack at the actual villain that you're supposed to be hunting. And no, there is no way to speed up or skip this grind. Only one mission will ever appear at a time so that you're constantly railroaded into doing exactly what the game wants. After every mission, you'll gain a set amount of XP, there's no other way to gain experience, and only once the XP bar has filled twice from doing set-in-stone missions and making set-in-stone progress exactly as predetermined, will you get to do the actual story mission where you take down Metallo. Sometimes you'll be asked to use super breath to put out a fire, and sometimes you'll be sent against flying enemies that you have to ram with super speed, but these three objectives are all that the game cycles through for hours on end. And as you can imagine, this shit gets really boring and repetitive really fast. I wonder if the game's structure is meant to rip off Spider-Man 2, the movie game, because that had a similar setup of do story missions, dick around the city to level up and advance the story, except Spider-Man 2 had way more activities, vastly less XP you had to farm, and you got multiple story missions at once between downtime, instead of just one shitty punch until fall down pathetic-ass villain brawl before the lazy-ass game calls it a day. Superman doesn't have a health bar. No enemy in the game is capable of actually injuring you. So instead, the game has a city health bar. Enemies will attack nearby cars, civilians, and trees, and you fail a mission if the city takes too much damage. And yes, it is friggin' hilarious that the game runs on a city health meter given what happens in the next Superman movie. Thing is though, for all the belly aching that I've heard about the city health mechanic, it isn't really a factor until the end of the game. Outside of a few boss fights with a kind of puzzle setup to them, the city health drains really slowly and refills automatically with each mission. You barely even need to pay attention to it. Yeah, it means that the whole game is timed, but by and large that time limit is super lenient. If you do need to refill the city health in a pinch, you can rescue injured civilians, pick them up, and drop them off by an ambulance. Except this system is broken 6 different ways. Often there's just no friggin' ambulance anywhere for you to rescue someone, and 9 times out of 10, that ambulance will be so friggin' far away from the victims that the game won't be able to keep track of them, and all the other victims to rescue will disintegrate after having just saved one. So trying to rescue people barely works and does basically nothing. Explains why Zack Snyder's Superman doesn't even bother with it. And when you go to pick up injured civilians, odds are good that you'll accidentally pick up nearby cars instead. And there's no way to gently set cars back down once you've picked them up, so... Sorry, dude. You have no choice but to huck cars full of screaming civilians into fiery, mutilating deaths because the controls screwed up. Unless the car in question happens to be made of rubber, of course. And the game's civilians are friggin' morons, man. You'll be fighting hordes of enemies or duking it out with a supervillain that can level buildings, and the damn morons will keep running directly into your punches and heat vision in mid-fight. Can you help, Superman? Superman, can you? Why? And of course, that's when civilians aren't literally spawning feet away from a rampaging supervillain just to screw with you. Clearly my heat vision has released this woman from the Phantom Zone. And the one time that I did fail a mission for City Health in the Metallo boss fight, I was introduced to another of the game's problems. Markers to launch missions won't appear until they're good and damn ready. I've had to dick around the city for 10 minutes at a time, waiting for the game to remember to let me into the next level or give me another crack at the damn boss. Like it's not enough the whole game is filler, even the padding has to have padding. There are a few extra activities that you can do in between levels, courtesy of challenges from Mr. Mixia-Spitlick. Oh, right, might be dealing with comic book normies. Mr. Mixia-Spitlick is an imp from the 5th dimension who can warp reality, and he gets bored, so he uses his powers to screw with Superman, and he can only be banished back to his home dimension by tricking him into saying or spelling his name backwards. It's that kind of fun, creative, and lighthearted comic book concept that Zack Snyder would shoot in the head. So what are Mixi's challenges? Well, there are destruction derbies playing as Bizarro, which is a great idea even if I suck at them because toppling buildings is not a thing here. Races, where the controls are so sensitive that any course that winds through buildings will have you crash and lose. Not so good idea. And needing to track down 100 stray cats with 0 radar or marking, and ostensibly only a slight audio cue that they're near. Horrible idea! And actually doing all this useless side crap tells you that it increases the city's health, sure as hell feels like it does nothing. So between levels, you've got basically nothing to do except wait with your thumb up your ass for the next objective to eventually deign to show up. Also, is it just me or is the layout of Metropolis in this game really friggin' stupid? It's built on the sides and tops of a mountain where there are 3 different layers going up the sides of said mountain. One strong earthquake and chunks of city are going to pancake other chunks of city. The commute must be a bitch! Anyway, in the final fight with Metallo, he keeps spawning these little Metal Sonic-like enemies that dash miles away, and you have to keep stopping the fight to chase the damn things across the whole friggin' map. And then he turns into a giant that's immune to everything except slowly hucking cars and his own drones at him. And then instead of a satisfying cutscene marking Metallo's defeat, they just cut to a newspaper headline. Which happens a lot. Yeah, I'm starting to get the sense that this game was a low-budget rush job. The AI and combat are a joke. The game's added to Kingdom Come. They skimp out on pretty much every cutscene that's not pulled directly from the movie. And the cape physics are a thing. They have snippets here and there of the movie's plot. Lex Luthor finds the Fortress of Solitude, steals Superman's crystals of super knowledge, and he discovers that dunking the crystals in water makes them grow supersized because shut up. Except in the movie, Lex's little test run of the crystals leads to a thrilling sequence of Superman catching a falling airplane. Here it leads to an outage at a cloning lab where Bizarro, and for no reason that is ever explained, hundreds of fire-breathing dragons and alien mutants that turn to stone are being held. Between this crap and Mixia-Spitlick, I think we all missed a much more interesting movie before this one. And now that we've moved up to fighting Bizarro and an army of mutants, does the gameplay actually change at all? Of course not. You fight Bizarro by tediously button-mashing him to death, he runs away, and then you're dumped into the city to grind boring-ass basic enemies for another hour plus. Nothing the hell changes, except now the enemies have more health and spawn in bigger numbers. Not that it matters when you're friggin' invincible! Look at this. They swamp you in dragons that hose you down in fire 4 or 5 at a time, and it doesn't matter because I'm Superman! It doesn't affect me! Did you just forget what friggin' game you are making? Because these dragons don't even look like they come from the same game. The annoying thing about these dragons is that some of them are just randomly immune to heat vision and some aren't, because some of them are supposed to be ice dragons that are coated in frost, but the game bugged out and didn't texture them properly until way later. The game's combat is just abysmal. Your Super Breath and Ice Breath don't actually injure anybody, Ice Breath only barely stuns people, so if an enemy is immune to your heat vision, which several are, then literally the only way to kill them is with punches. Slow, tedious melee attacks to where you spend several seconds wailing on a dummy with the one melee combo that actually works. And once you get past Metallo's portion of the story, they'll often gang up like 15 enemies on you at once, so that each mission is as drawn out and tedious as possible. The combat is unbearably slow and clunky, and this mindless mashing is the only thing you do through most of the game. And whether it's Metallo's goons, Bizarro's cloned mutants, or Mongols aliens, literally nothing changes about the combat except how much health the enemy has and whether or not your heat vision works. You gain enhanced versions of some of Superman's powers, like a big-ass blast of ice breath or heat vision that just nukes the entire ground ahead of you. Both of these powers barely even scratch any of the enemies. I can't for the life of me figure out why these moves even exist. The one time that the game tries to break the mold and give you an interesting mission, you're tasked with escorting 3 blimps through a group of dragons, except they spawn like 30 of the damn things at once, and you can't kill them nearly quick enough. This is pretty much the one part of the game where the super breath actually comes in handy, since it knocks back the dragons to buy you some time, and the ice breath has decided that it just doesn't feel like putting out fires anymore. And even still, this level is friggin' annoying and feels like it was barely balanced at all. Anyway, back to Bizarro, who they actually have a little cutscene of him flying away while talking with his mouth not moving.
Me be hero. Me destroy everything.
Are we sure that's Bizarro? He just sounds like Zack Snyder's Superman. The final fight with Bizarro is such a royal pain. It's bad enough that you have no choice but to slowly whittle down his health with clunky melee blows, and he starts blocking everything until you let him land a free shot, but his health bar refills like 5 damn times. And I had a rough mission before this to where the city health didn't replenish all the way before the fight. Come on, please, let this be the end, let this be the end. I don't want to start, oh no, not more shit, extract shit! Oh, you suck so hard. Next is the cutscene from the movie, where Lex captures Lois on his yacht and explains his plan. And yes, they do the big meme from the movie.
Come on, say it. Superman will never let— Wrong!
Also interesting to note, they cut that whole Lois had Superman's kid subplot from the movie, so Superman isn't a deadbeat dad to an illegitimate son to make him more relatable to normal people anymore. Lex's plan is to shoot a crystal into the ocean that'll grow a gigantic new island, wipe out the United States, and somehow he's convinced that this will get him a ton of money from selling new real estate. Setting aside how dumb it is to have Lex Luthor still obsessed with land deals in the 2000s, I've always had questions about Lex's plan in the movie. For one, how are people going to live on this island? It's rocks! It can't grow any crops, what'll you do for food? 2, Lex brags that he's got alien technology, but again, rocks! You stole Superman's Wikipedia server, not missile launchers, you dumbass! 3, if the island is made of kryptonite, and kryptonite is radioactive, won't it just kill everyone who moves there? Starting with Lex? And 4, why didn't Zod use his terraforming machine to colonize literally anywhere else? Sorry, wrong movie. So you grind another half hour, Mongol comes back, you find him by painstakingly chipping away at his health because dodging behind him is the only thing that works, and then he runs away and you begin the whole process of grinding the same damn enemies for another hour. God damn it! Why is this game so boring and long? And it's only 5 hours long! This is the point where the game just fractures, chucking hordes of enemies at you with no thought or care given to game balancing. Now none of the enemies are vulnerable to your heat vision, so you just start drowning in bitches that are immune to everything, block loads of attacks, have crap loads of health, and take forever and a half to kill, so the city's health is going to go to hell every friggin' mission. Between each level, I had to start saving the game and immediately reloading just to restore enough city health between levels to keep these busted-ass stages playable. And just when you're at your wit's end, they introduce Riot. Riot is a doctor who clones himself every single time that he gets punched, or pretty much any time that he feels like it. He's only vulnerable to heat vision. Heat vision that he will near constantly dodge. Try grabbing him to laser his face off? Doesn't work, just spawns a clone. Try freezing him in place to hit with lasers? Doesn't work, the freeze breath only gets dodged slightly less often than the heat vision. Think maybe those giant screen nuking super moves would finally actually come in handy?
Wrong!
Literally, the only way to fight this prick is to shoot each of his clones over and over and over and over until the game finally decides to actually hit them! Thank crap this dude only sticks around for like 3 levels before he's defeated, like the devs finally found a threshold of too annoying. This is also where I learned to hate the game's targeting system. You hold the left shoulder button and the game locks onto an enemy seemingly at complete random. Doesn't matter if you're looking dead on at an enemy or if you got them 3 feet in front of your face, game won't reliably lock onto them, and there is no way to cycle through targets. If you want to attack a specific enemy, you have to keep pressing and releasing the targeting button again and again, and hope that eventually you get it on pure luck. Mongol brings his reject gladiators to fight you, playing exactly the same as they did the first time, because nothing says heightened stakes or difficulty curve quite like, here's the starter enemies again, completely unaltered. One of them's a giant dude who's only vulnerable to throwing cars at him that I really hope are unoccupied, but probably are not. And Mongol fights you by spawning enemies that respawn almost immediately, so I guess just kill them off fast, dumbass, cause there ain't shit you can do to protect the city. We finally cut back over to the plot of the movie, where Lex Luthor fires his magic rock into the ocean and begins growing a new radioactive, uninhabitable rock continent to sell for land. But before Superman can stop the giant rock that'll wipe out the entire United States, he has to stop tornadoes. The growing crystals somehow generate tornadoes that head towards Metropolis, because shut up. This leads to a very easy level where you go around blowing tornadoes away from the city, putting out a few fires, and then stopping a really big tornado by alternating shooting it with ice and heat, which I figured out by accident because the sound is mixed so poorly that I couldn't hear the directions. Well, that was a weird and stupid filler level, but now we're on to the real finale! Superman just chucks Lex's island into space in the next cutscene. Cut to credits with you not having actually done anything. That's the end? Game's over without ever actually confronting Lex Luthor in gameplay, and without seeing the movie to know otherwise, he got away? So, that tornado was the final boss! The epic confrontation that caps off the game as a final challenge, testing everything you've learned throughout the game, is breathing on a stationary column. The movie's end boss is a rock, the game's final boss is wind! Apparently the developers have said in interviews that the whole tornado thing was because they couldn't think of a better alternative to end the game, since a fight with the movie's version of Lex Luthor would probably just suck worse. I get that they were probably wary of throwing EA under the bus for giving them no time to finish the game, but that is a bad excuse. One, you could follow up on how Lex brags that he's got Kryptonian technology and give him the war suit from the comics. Two, you got all those magic rocks and Doomsday is kind of made of rocks. Just say that Lex created Doomsday. Yeah, it's not faithful to the comics, but Doomsday's origin in the comics is stupid. At least you wouldn't be copying Nuclear Man from the worst Superman movie ever. Or three, just sod the movie's ending and have a non-shitty final boss fight with Mongol or some other villain for the ending. You know why the final boss is a tornado? Same reason for everything else. This game was rushed like hell and they just ran out of time to make something that wasn't embarrassing. The devs have admitted that loads of content had to be cut to get the game shipped on EA's schedule. A playable Supergirl, being able to fly through water or into space as part of the overworld, Brainiac was supposed to be part of it. But given that even what they got finished is 95% padding, yeah, that all wasn't going to happen. Oh, and after the final boss, they have a humongous grind wall where you can keep fighting the same enemies in the same copy-pasted mission that you got sick of 3 hours ago for a total non-reward. Another thing they cribbed from Spider-Man 2, and another thing that can kiss my ass. You know, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of pissed off at how bad Superman Returns the video game is. They actually built a game where Superman's flight and powers are super easy and fun to use. You have a big open-world metropolis to explore, and they even managed to work Superman's invulnerability into the game in a way that made sense. But it feels like as soon as they got done making Superman function the best he ever has in any of these games, they ran out of time to make an actual game around it. And that's with the game being delayed to coincide with the film releasing on home video instead of its theatrical run. They still barely got a game together to ship. So you just have slow, infuriating, horribly balanced combat against the same 3 shit enemies for a 5-hour game, and it sucks. I totally get all the people that have told me and will continue to tell me that they love this game just for being able to dick around the overworld as Superman, but that is so not enough for me to overlook how terrible the actual gameplay is in this game. Shadow of Apocalypse was a better product. This thing is just tragic.